There are some footballers, like Eric Cantona, Zbigniew Boniek and Philipp Lahm, who bow out right at the very top of the game, when they are still among the best players in the world in their positions. Zinedine Zidane's final game as a professional was a World Cup final, at a tournament where he won the Golden Ball and might well have won his second World Cup had he not decided to plant his forehead straight into Marco Materazzi's chest. Yes, some players just want to call it quits whilst they're ahead, and for a few different reasons. Some live in fear of decline and of no longer being able to compete against the best. They'd rather just hang up their boots than be banished to the bench or drop down the divisions. Others just feel that the time is right. They've done everything that they set out to achieve in the game, and it has taken a physical and mental toll on them, and they're ready to say farewell to the sport and spend some time with their families. And others are just left with no choice at all. Typically, it's the knees or the ankles, but a recurring back injury or muscle issue will do it as well. All are perfectly legitimate reasons to turn your back on the game. But as I said recently, whilst talking in a video about Alexander Haleb, there are some footballers who simply refuse to retire. Some of them might say they're retiring, they might even spend a year or two out of the game, but they don't really mean it. Stanley Matthews won a Ballon d'Or at the age of 41, the FWA Footballer of the Year award at 48, and retired at the age of 50, and still said that he regretted retiring so early, only half joking when he said that he still had 2 good years left in him. Those are the types of players that we are interested in today, but unlike Matthews, I'm going to be focusing on those who are still active within the game. Here are 7 footballers who just refuse to retire. Nenea. There is a definite stereotype of Brazilian flair players that they tend to burst onto the scene very young, peak at the age of about 24 or 25, and be finished before they're 30. There are certainly some examples in which that is the case, but there are also some pretty notable exceptions, and that's why I went with Nenea as the opener in this 7. An incredibly gifted and versatile forward, Nenea starred alongside Robinho at Santos back in 2003. Both players were highly rated youngsters at the time, though Robinho was a much bigger name and talent, 3 years Nenea's junior. And yet, fast forward 18 years, and Robinho is a 37-year-old free agent who can't find a club, and Nenea is still starring in the top flight of Brazilian football for Vasco da Gama at the grand old age of 40. Of course, that is partly because Robinho is a convicted sex offender, but we'll focus on Nenea's longevity for the purposes of this 7. And even if Robinho wasn't a fugitive from the Italian courts, he still wouldn't be as good as Nenea is now. Many of you, given the demographics of this channel, will remember Nenea best for his brief stint at West Ham, along with his 3 seasons at PSG, where he was excellent and pivotal in establishing the club under their new Qatari ownership as a force within the French game. Nenea has now played close to 700 games in professional football, and he rejoined Vasco in September, where he previously spent 3 seasons, following 2 years with Fluminense. Nenea, unsurprisingly, has lost a bit of pace since his PSG days, though he is still no slouch, and his vision, awareness, and wonderful technique has given him the freedom to keep on playing into his 40s. Joaquin. Another 40-year-old who just won't hang up his boots, Real Betis captain Joaquin, has said that this season will be his last, but I'm pretty sure that we've heard it all before. Joaquin has postponed his retirement a couple of times in the past, and why not, given the fact that he still captains Real Betis and hasn't made fewer than 30 appearances for the club in any of the past 4 seasons. To give some context to the amount of time Joaquin has spent within the game, and at Real Betis, it is worth noting that despite winning more than 50 caps for Spain, his last cap came over 14 years ago, which is just bonkers, and there are now several Betis players who weren't even born when he played his first game and won his first promotion from the Segunda Division as a star man for the club. Joaquin was born in Andalusia, and he joined the Real Betis youth ranks as a 16-year-old. Though he is Real Betis' all-time leading appearance holder, having played almost 500 games for the club, Joaquin did actually spend 9 years away from Betis, sandwiched between his first and second stints back home. That is pretty extraordinary in of itself, and Joaquin also holds the record for the most La Liga appearances of any outfield player, ever, having recently overtaken Raul despite spending 2 of those 9 years away from Betis playing for Fiorentina in Serie A. A once rapid right winger who was Spain's star man along with Fernando Hierro at the 2002 World Cup, a tournament at which he turned 21 years old, this season Joaquin has grown accustomed to often being used off the bench. A fantastic leader who is still more than capable of beating a man with skill or speed, and I'm not kidding there, if I'm as quick as Joaquin is at 40 years old, I will be pretty chuffed. I must admit, that seems fairly unlikely given that I'm not as quick as he is at 40 now, and I'm 25, but who knows? Maybe I'll start exercising or just suddenly become really quick in 10 years' time. Gianluigi Buffon. The poster boy for this 7, Gianluigi Buffon isn't the oldest player to feature, but he is the most successful and undoubtedly the most celebrated. The greatest goalkeeper of my lifetime, I think, and I have just put a timescale on that for you, I think Gianluigi Buffon's consistency and longevity would put him ahead of Peter Schmeichel, Oliver Kahn, and Iker Casillas, along with Manuel Neuer, for now at least. Buffon was always perfectly poised to have a long career in the game. Given the fact that goalkeepers tend to have longer careers, he has always been outstanding, and his positioning has always been so good that even as his reflexes and athleticism began to dim, he has still been able to keep the ball out of the net. Of course, Buffon is not the same man now that he was 10 or 20 years ago, which was when he first signed for Juventus. But it was only 3 years ago that he won the IFFHS Best Goalkeeper of the Year award at the grand old age of 40. Buffon was still one of the best goalkeepers in the world, at least up until 2017, when he captained Juventus in his last Champions League final. The Champions League is the one trophy that has evaded Buffon, and it was long speculated that his move to PSG, his return to Juventus, and his refusal to retire were all motivated by a determination to finally get his hands on European football's biggest prize. That theory might have been somewhat undermined by Buffon's most recent move, a romantic return to Parma, where it all started in the summer of 2021. That is when he returned, just to be clear, not when it all started. Parma play in Serie B, and they are in the bottom half of the Serie B table. So, a return to the Champions League there for the 43-year-old could fairly be described as a bit of a long shot. Despite Parma's struggles, Buffon has rarely let them down, recently having saved his 3rd penalty of the season. Buffon's partner recently stated that every season he promises her that it will be his last, but come May, he changes his mind. As of yet, the Italian great, who won 176 caps for the Azzurri, hasn't made any promises to hang up his gloves at the end of this season. Sebastian Abreu. Often referred to as football's greatest journeyman, Sebastian Abreu is someone who loves football and who loves travelling, and he doesn't seem keen on giving either passion up anytime soon. Capped 70 times by Uruguay, only 6 men have ever scored more goals for the 2-time World Cup winners, so it would be wrong to mistake Abreu as a journeyman and nothing else. He formed a famous partnership for many years alongside Diego Forlan for the South Americans, as well as serving as a teammate and mentor to both Luis Suarez and Edinson Cavani for a number of years. There must be something in the water in Uruguay, or in the steak, since Diego Forlan kept playing until the age of 41, Edinson Cavani is still playing for Manchester United at the age of 34, and Luis Suarez, also aged 34, won the La Liga title with Atletico Madrid last season. Trumping all of those accomplishments, though, Sebastian Abreu is 45 years old. He has played for 31 different teams, and he is still playing now, as a centre-forward, at the grand old age of 45. Yeah, I know, I already said he was 45, but I just feel as though that point is worth drumming home twice. Abreu has played football in 11 different countries across 4 separate continents, though he has only ever spent half a season on loan in Europe with Real Sociedad. It's a shame that it wasn't longer, given that Abreu smashed in 11 goals in only 18 La Liga games for La Real. A big, clever target man with a fantastic eye for goal, Abreu scored 55 goals in just 93 games for Botafogo in his mid-30s, which is a real mark of both his talent and longevity. Now aged 45, I repeat for the 3rd time there, he has had to drop down the divisions in recent years, most recently having signed for Club Atlético Olimpia, a semi-professional team who compete in regional level football in the city of Minas in Uruguay. Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Someone who I initially left out of my 7 in favour of some lesser-known inclusions, hence why I stated so confidently earlier on that Gianluigi Buffon was the most successful and celebrated of my inclusions. In the end, I decided that it wouldn't be worth the inevitable havoc that would be caused in the comments to leave him out. As with a couple of videos that I've done recently, if this one does well, I would be more than willing to make a part 2, given the plethora of players that I had to leave out. Ultimately though, Zlatan Ibrahimovic is a very worthy inclusion, because he is almost the epitome of a footballer that refuses to retire. I have seen it joked on Twitter that Ibrahimovic now lives in a perpetual cycle of getting injured, coming back, scoring a goal, posting on social media that he is a lion, and then getting injured again. That is condensing Ibrahimovic's current predicament into meme form, though it isn't all that far from the truth. That is not meant to be taken as a criticism of the big Swede, in case anyone was in any doubt. To have scored 34 goals in 59 games for AC Milan as a 40-year-old is quite frankly absurd, and the fact that he picks up quite a lot of injuries is pretty much inevitable. Ibrahimovic famously suffered serious ligament damage at Manchester United, following a fantastic run of form that many felt would finish off the veteran. That was 4.5 years ago. Since then, in addition to his aforementioned goals for AC Milan, Ibrahimovic also scored 53 goals in 58 games for LA Galaxy. Say what you like about the MLS, that is an unbelievable record. Just last week, Ibrahimovic stated that he was scared of retiring and of losing the adrenaline that he gets from playing the game. So, I certainly wouldn't put the mortgage on this being his final season. A reunion with Berlusconi at Monza perhaps? They've already tried to sign him once. Kazuyoshi Miura. The oldest professional footballer in the world, and the oldest footballer full stop in this 7, Kazuyoshi Miura, is another man that I simply could not leave out, unless I wanted to get stampeded in the comments. I must admit, as someone who doesn't follow Japanese football particularly closely, it wasn't up until a couple of years ago that I realised quite how wild Kazuyoshi Miura's longevity really was, and indeed, still is. I talked you through some of the crazy statistics regarding Joaquin, but with Miura, it is like putting those insane numbers on steroids. The 54-year-old made his debut for Japan in 1990, a full 31 years ago, and he won the last of his 89 caps, and scored the last of his 55 goals for the Samurai Blue, which puts him second in their all-time scoring charts in the year 2000. 21 years ago. To put that in some context, even among the players featured in this 7, Miura won the last of his 89 caps for Japan before Zlatan Ibrahimovic won the first of his 120 caps for Sweden. And yet, he is still playing. Once a very prolific forward, as you can tell from his international goal-scoring record, Miura is a little less prolific these days. In fact, he doesn't actually play all that often, having averaged about 5 or 6 games a season since the 2018 campaign. That is 5 or 6 games more than any other 54-year-old though. In fact, there is no one else who even comes remotely close to his age that is playing at such a high level in all of world football, at least as far as I'm aware. Miura has been with Yokohama FC since 2005, where he has tasted 2 promotions and 2 relegations. Yokohama, who were only founded as a protest club in 1999, finished bottom of the J-League table this season, which is the top flight of Japanese football, meaning that they will compete in the J2 League next season. Damiano TOMMASI. Loyal subscribers to this channel know that I never let you down, unlike my girlfriend, and I have saved an absolute gem until last. If you're not yet a loyal subscriber, fear not, we are currently accepting new subscribers for a limited time only. You just have to hit subscribe and turn on notifications, so probably wise to do that before the opportunity goes. Returning to the small matter of our final inclusion, Damiano TOMMASI is, as far as I'm aware, the only person to have played for Tianjin Men Tiger FC in the Chinese Super League and Queen's Park Rangers in the Championship during the same season. That was the 2008-09 season, by which stage TOMMASI was already 34, an age at which most players are beginning to wind down their playing days. TOMMASI played his best football for Roma, where he spent a decade, and made more than 300 appearances. A dogged defensive or box-to-box midfielder, renowned for his tough tackling and industriousness, TOMMASI won 25 caps for Italy, including playing in every one of their games at the 2002 World Cup, where the Azuri were controversially knocked out by the host South Korea. Tommasi returned to Asia at the end of his career with Tianjin, and he would end up continuing to work partly in China after his first retirement. Along with his agent and friend, Tommasi founded a consulting firm designed to connect football-related businesses in Asia and Europe, which was headquartered in China. A year later, Tommasi became president of the Italian Footballers Association, a role that he would hold until 2020. Throughout this time, it must be said, Tommasi never really spent more than a year fully out of the game. In 2009, he joined Sant'Anna del Fado, a local amateur team based in the commune of the same name in the province of Verona. Still fit and playing regularly, in 2015, Tommasi struck a deal with La Fiorita of San Marino, agreeing to play for the club in European competition. Tommasi stayed true to his word, playing more than 10 Europa or Champions League qualifying matches for the Sammarinese side over the course of 5 separate seasons. It is worth noting that Tommasi was 41 when he played his first game for La Fiorita and 46 when he played his last. And throughout this time, he continued to play for Sant'Anna del Fado in the 8th tier of the Italian game, which is something that he still does. A born leader, Tommasi began his career with Verona, and now he is hoping his continued presence in the city has earned him some goodwill, since he is running to be the new mayor of Verona in 2022. A city where the far-right, right, and religious conservatives have joined forces unlike almost anywhere else in Italy, Verona's current mayor is Federico Sporiano of the neo-fascist Brothers of Italy party. Under his watch, Verona has become the first city in Italy to roll back women's reproductive rights over abortion, more than 4 decades after abortion was first legalised in the country. Tommasi is leading a centre-left coalition, having been jointly elected by the Democratic Party, the Greens, and the Socialists in an effort to try and oust Sporiano. Tommasi, just to be clear, is still contracted to 8th tier Sant'Anna, which means that he is a living contradiction to the people who say that you can't combine football and politics, since he is, quite literally, doing just that. That is it for today's video, but thank you all very much as ever for watching. There is certainly some part 2 potential here, because I had a really interesting shortlist with plenty of other inclusions that would make for a decent video. So, let me know if that's something you'd be interested in, as well as your thoughts on this video, and hit the like button if you enjoyed it, and, all the rest of it. Make sure you subscribed, as I say, limited time only. And you can also find me on social media, on Instagram or Twitter, or both, via the username @HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.